Hello guys, welcome to another video. I'm Adi from Pixel Profits, and this is part 4 in a series of guides on how to use Audacity. In the previous parts of this series we've looked at how to set up Audacity and the initial settings that we need. We've also looked at recording and basic functions, and we also had a look at how to edit our video and chop it up, mix it around, and basically structure it how we want, ready for noise removal, which is what we're going to talk about in this video here. So we are going to look at two types of noise removal, and we're going to look at noise reduction and noise gate. If you've missed the other parts of this series, I'm going to put links in the description below, and they'll be appearing on the screen right now, of course. Also, we're almost at the end of this series. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to apply effects to make our voice sound good, and I'm going to put timestamps in the description of this video so you can skip around and come back and watch certain parts if you were confused later. If you like this video, leave me a like, leave me a comment, share the video with someone who might find it useful, and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that you see when I release a new video. Okay guys, let's jump straight in. So, here we have a clip from the previous video, and you might recognise this if you've been following along with this series. What we're going to do, just to start off with, is let's double click on the first one, and we're going to hit Control and D. So we're going to create now 3 copies if we scroll down. Exactly identical copies for now, and what we want to do is apply no effects to one, noise removal or noise reduction, to the next one, and a noise gate to the last one, and then we can compare and see what we think, and that's particularly important for you guys to do, so you can actually, if you're doing this for the first time, you see the difference or not, and you can decide which one you want to use. Now, noise can really ruin a good recording. You might have great content, loads of cool stuff to share, but people might be put off if you've got a terrible amount of background noise and it's just so off-putting that they click away, and they're probably more likely to click away if the audio is bad than if the actual visual side of things are bad. So it's really important. Where does this noise come from? Now we're talking about, just to be clear, we're talking about sort of constant background noise. We're not talking about the odd pop or click or small sounds that you get that are annoying. Those we looked at removing in the previous videos. For now, we're looking at that constant background noise. Where does it come from? Well, could be a number of sources. Common ones are things like your PC fans, air conditioning unit, perhaps even the traffic noise outside your window. We're talking about fairly constant background noise that there's no way to delete other than using one of these sort of methods. So, let's look at what we need to do. Well, first, what's a noise gate? Well, a noise gate reduces or silences the audio based on a threshold that you set. So you set a level in decibels, and anything that goes above that level, it will cause the gate to open, and all the audio, and I mean all of the audio, will come through, including the background noise. We'll talk about that more in a minute. If it's underneath the threshold, then no noise will come through at all, and it will be basically complete silence. There's a little bit more to it than that, but we'll look at that a little later. So, what about noise reduction then? Well, noise reduction basically uses a sample that you select, and it uses that sample as a reference of the sound that you want to remove from your recording. It's then going to process your entire audio clip and remove these frequency characteristics from the entire clip. So there's a quick summary of what they're all about. Which one should you choose? Well, generally I would say that where possible you should try and use a noise gate rather than noise reduction. It's not always this simple, so let's take a look in more detail at why. So we know now that a noise gate will cut out sound under a certain threshold, and it's going to allow sound through once that threshold is broken. So it can be an effective way to remove unwanted noise during periods where you're not speaking. And this is going to work well if the noise in the background isn't too loud. When you speak, the noise gate's going to open, and the best scenario is that the noise in the background is completely drowned out by your voice, so it's not noticeable. If the background noise is loud enough though, when the gate opens, it will also be there at full volume. So the difference between the level of your voice and the background noise needs to ideally be as large as possible. Otherwise, you're still going to hear that background noise while the gate opens to let your voice through. Okay, so what about noise reduction then? Well, the issue with noise reduction is that it also tries to remove noise at times when you're speaking. Now, at first, from what we just talked about, this sounds like a good thing, until you understand that this will not only be working on the noise you want to remove, instead, the characteristics of the sample of noise you select are going to be applied to all of your audio in the entire clip, basically. So this means that all the audio is going to end up having something removed, so the quality usually suffers as a result. Now you might notice this, you might not. It really depends on how much noise you're going to be removing, but it can also sometimes introduce artifacts, which we talked about before, and artifacts are basically unwanted sort of distortions and stuff in your recording. So the less background noise you have, again, the better noise reduction is going to work, because it's going to do less damage because it has less stuff to remove. So with this in mind, we can see that in both scenarios, they both indicate that we should be thinking about limiting the amount of background noise as a priority, and this is going to ultimately make either effect work better. Isolating your microphone or the source of the noise in your room is going to greatly benefit your recordings, and this depends on the room characteristics, the equipment you use and your settings. And again, this is probably a separate video for me to make, but let me know in the comments below if that's something you want me to make, and I will. But we can take a quick look here. If I click on the click to start monitoring and I be quiet for a moment, I have almost no background noise. You could see by the level meter there. If you watch it one more time, if you like. So I have very little background noise, but I've taken some steps to get rid of it, and I can help you with that if you need it. So let me know if you do. Now, what we're going to be using for the noise gate is what's called the Nyqvist noise gate plugin, and it doesn't come pre-installed with Audacity, but don't worry, I've made a video on how to install it, and it shows you how to install this exact plugin. So I'm going to put a link to that on the screen right now, and of course in the description below. It's very easy and quick to do, so if you don't know how to install plugins, go and watch that video and then return here once you've got the noise gate installed. And it's a really useful plugin to have, and I highly recommend that you go and get it, if you want great sounding audio, of course. If you already know how to install a plugin, then I've put a link in the description below as well, so you can just go and grab that if you want. Alright, so I'm going to assume now that you have the Nyqvist noise gate plugin installed. It's a bit of a mouthful, that name, isn't it? But I'm going to assume you've got it installed now. And if you've been following the previous videos in this series, you should have duplicated at least once. And, we did it just now. But again, if you haven't, just make sure you grab one of these clips, Control and D to duplicate the thing. So we got 3 copies. Just make sure you've done that, because it's probably going to be important for you to listen back later. Now, what we can do is we can grab this and drag it down, as we know now. We've done this before. And doing this because at first you might not be able to notice the unwanted noise until you drag it down like this and make it a little bigger, or until you apply or start applying certain effects to your voice. So what we're going to do to make this all easier to see, we're going to apply the normalize effect. Now, what that does is basically just boosts up the volume. So I'm going to hit Control and A, and that'll select all of our tracks. Then we're going to go to Effects, and we're going to go to Normalize. And then we want to copy my settings here, and I'll explain these in the next video. But for now, just copy these, and -1 is the important number there as well, and then press OK. And you see that this has jumped up now. It's basically boosted up the volume of everything. And now we can see by this low-level waveform activity here that there's definitely some sort of background noise in this recording. And there's a little peak there, whereas the click that I put in on purpose, just to demonstrate something in this video, which we'll get to in a moment. So let's have a listen now to this noise, and what we do, we'll solo the top track here, just to get the single one playing. And we press play. And we can see, apart from the little click there, we were just above -48 here. So that would be somewhere around our threshold that we want to set in our noise gate soon. But let's just dial back a moment and think about a few things. Now, the type of microphone you use is going to be quite important to the amount of background noise that you get. Now, I recorded this clip using a Rode Podcaster, which is a dynamic microphone, and the Podcaster is much less sensitive than my Blue Yeti, which is a condenser microphone. Now, with the Yeti, I would have even more noticeable background noise, and this is another important thing that you need to be thinking about, which many people don't tell you. The type of microphone you have is going to have a big effect on the amount of noise you're picking up. If you're having problems with noise, I'd suggest that you could consider a dynamic microphone, as this will likely help a lot. it basically makes the pickup pattern of the microphone much closer and much more sort of direct in a line, if you like. It's a little more complex than that, but that's an easy, basic way of explaining it. And again, that's another video I'm talking myself into, I guess. But this is really important. I thought bring it up here because if you're really frustrated by your level of noise, this could make a big difference very quickly. Again, let me know in the comments below if you want a video about dynamic mics and such. Anyway, your equipment and your environment, your setup is going to be determining the amount of background noise you're going to pick up. So if you can, you absolutely should be taking steps to get rid of that noise. This is always going to be better than applying heavier noise reduction later on. So we need some information first to put into our noise gate. So let's do that now. So we've selected our portion at the beginning of the clip. Now what we want to do is make sure we don't select this little peak here because that's an actual click sound that I put in. What we want is just this constant noise, right? So we play it back again. Now I'm going to say from that our level is here, which is going to be about, let's be safe and say minus 45, which is probably somewhere like here. So if we set our threshold there, that should be good. So what we want to do now is we want to go to Effects, and we want to go to the noise gate, which is down here. So we've got some options for our noise gate. Let's talk about what they are then. So select function, we want to select the gate. In my testing, I haven't been able to use the analyze noise level successfully, which basically just does what we did now, but automatically. It analyzes the part that you want and it will give you a figure on, the number to put in. But I haven't really been able to make that work very well, and it just seems to do the first half a second, which I prefer to do a bit more than that, just in case, the sound level changes a little. So I don't use that. Let's just stick to gate for this video. And stereo linking, we want to link stereo tracks so that if you are doing this in stereo, then basically by selecting link stereo tracks, your clip is going to be gated only when both stereo tracks fall below the gate threshold. If you select don't link stereo tracks, then this will allow the two stereo channels to be gated independently when just one of them falls below the threshold. This isn't important because I'm recording in mono, and so will you probably be if you have been following my video series. So I'll apply the low cut filter, and we're going to select no. We mean basically we don't want the low cut filter to be applied. The other two options are remove subsonic frequencies, which are basically low frequency sounds you can't really hear, but you can feel. So we don't need to worry about those either. So we just have no here. So you've got all those settings. It's great. Let's move on to the next part then. So gate frequencies, what's this then? Well, this applies the gate only to the frequencies above the set level. It might remove hiss, but may also introduce phase shifting, which is like a sweeping sort of sound that won't be what you want in your voiceover audio. So setting this below 0.1 kilohertz will switch this feature off. So we'll have complete zero there because we don't want that. Level reduction. This is how much the gated sections are reduced in volume. So if you want complete silence, then you select minus 96 or lower, and the minimum is minus 100. But keeping some of the room ambience might actually sound okay and might help to smooth the transition between when you start and stop speaking. So try about minus 20 and listen to how it sounds using the preview, and then adjust to your liking and then move on. So the gate threshold then. Well, the gate threshold is a magic number that we were looking for earlier when we monitored our audio. So when the audio level drops below this threshold, the gate is going to close and the output level will be reduced. And when the audio level rises above this threshold, the gate is going to be open and the sound will pass through. So this is where we want to put that value we had in earlier. Now I'm going to change this then to, what did I say, minus 45, I think. Let's do that. Tell you what we do. We could do minus 43 because it's not going to have too much effect. Like I said, I don't have too much noise, so we should be good. So go ahead and enter your value in from your testing that you've done if you followed along with what I was doing. And then we're going to move on to attack and decay. So what does this mean? Well, this controls how much the gate opens and closes, or how quickly, the gate opens and closes. So at the minimum, it's going to be 10 milliseconds, and the gate will fully open and close almost instantly as the audio level crosses the threshold. And at the maximum of 1,000 milliseconds, the gate will begin to slowly open, and it will sort of fade in 1 second before the sound level exceeds the threshold, and it's gradually going to close or fade out after the sound level drops below the threshold, and it will do that. It will fade out over a 1 second period. So these settings can have a major effect on how natural the gate sounds. So if you find things are being cut off early, like words are being cut off and like this, then you really want to, and this is particularly at the beginning or end of a sentence, try adjusting this setting. But I would recommend you go with 250 milliseconds and have a listen back and see how that sounds. That's the setting I use. So take a moment and tweak these settings to your liking. And if you choose the wrong settings here, you might end up cutting out all sorts of parts of your words, and as well as the noise, which will make your voice sound unnatural. So when you're happy with the settings, press OK, and then have a listen back to the audio clip at various points. And you see I've only applied this now to the top one. I'll just show you. See, there's the noise still there, but we're applying it to the top one. You can see now that the noise has disappeared, right? It's flat. So let's have a listen back. Hello guys, and welcome to this Pixel Profits tutorial. Today we'll be looking at... Alright, and we basically cut out, if we play back the silence then. So now you hear there's no noise there. So that's the noise gate then. It's cut out the sound when there's silence and in between our sentences as well. And if it hasn't, what we do is we go back and tweak those settings. Now we know what they do until we find that it has. And if it's sounding unnatural, we tweak around a little bit. We'll see if we can adjust the sort of the decay and the attack time and see if that will help us to sound, just maintain a natural sounding recording basically. And I'm using a noise gate on this recording, so if you're hearing this sound good, then you know that a noise gate is good, and I'm not using noise reduction on this either. So let's move on to noise reduction then. So we need to select a section of the audio at the start of our clip to make this work. So what we're going to do, we're going to take off the solo on there, and what we'll do is we'll just move this back to make it a bit smaller. And now we'll start working on our second clip. If you want to, you could rename these tracks to name them, which effect you've applied to them if you wish. But I'm not going to worry about that. We know this is a gate. We're going to do this one with noise removal. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select a portion at the beginning of the clip like so. Just a few seconds is fine. I'd recommend for you guys, because we already listened to mine, but if you haven't listened to yours, have a listen back and just make sure there's nothing weird in here. There's no big spike on the level meter here when you're playing it back, because you don't want things like this click in there, because that then is not representing the actual noise you want removed. Well, you might want to remove that, but you can do that manually just by going to silence. But what you want to do is remove this type of noise, this constant noise from the rest of the recording, right? So we're going to select this, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to Effects, and we're going to go to Noise Reduction. Now the first step of this is just to press Get Noise Profile. And what that does is it takes this sample and stores it. Looks like it's done nothing. But now if we double click on our clip, and we will go to Effects and Noise Reduction again. Now what we're going to do is we need to consider some of these settings. Now the amount of noise you can select anything down to sort of half a second, but it's better to get a few seconds in there just to give it a good sample of the noise. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select our noise reduction in decibels. So this tells Audacity how much you want to reduce the noise by in volume, and a higher value will reduce it more, but might damage the remaining audio. So the best rule is to raise this until the noise is reduced to a level that you find acceptable. I'm going to go with 12 on this one. Sensitivity controls how much of the audio will be considered as noise, ranging from 0 to, which basically turns it off completely, up to a maximum of 24. And the higher the sensitivity, the more noise is going to be removed. But remember, whatever settings you're applying to the unwanted noise are also being applied to the rest of your audio. So a low sensitivity setting can result in the appearance of artifacts within your recordings, and this is, as we know, not something we want. So if you start hearing strange noises or distortions, raise the sensitivity level until no artifacts are introduced. And I'd recommend you start somewhere between 1 and 6 and see what your audio sounds like. So I'm going to go with 3 and try that yourself if you want, and then tweak it as you need to. Frequency smoothing in bands. Well, this is going to help basically with spreading the noise reduction out into the surrounding audio bands. So if you're hearing those artifacts after applying noise reduction, frequency smoothing might help to mix these in and make them sound a little more acceptable, but it does modify the sound you intend to keep again, so you might make it less clear if you start messing with this. So just this is really one you need to test. I would say that if your voiceover has a good strong signal and the unwanted noise is quite low, you can initially try leaving this at 0, which is completely off. And if this sounds good, you're done. Otherwise, if you've got artifacts, or after applying the noise reduction you've got artifacts, raise the frequency smoothing to about 3, which is the default level, and you can increase from there if you need to higher values. And they can also work fine for just simple voice audio, so you could crank it up high and it might still be good. But just mess around with it until you feel that the audio sounds good. Alright, so noise reduce or residue, and what are these? Well, selecting reduce filters out the noise from the selected audio so that when you preview it, you'll hear that basically what the audio will sound like after your selected changes will be applied. And residue allows you to hear only the audio that will be filtered out, so basically the noise. And if I was to listen back using residue, and I heard any of my speech within the residue sound, then it basically mean that I've set the noise reduction or sensitivity too high. So mess around with these if you need to, otherwise copy mine, but now you know what they do. And once you're happy with the settings, you can click OK, and that will apply noise reduction to the entire clip. Let's click it now and see what happens. And there we go again, we can see that most of the noise has been removed. There's the odd little bit still in there, tiny little like peaks that might have just been the ones that tipped us up to minus 46 or so. But the rest of it, as you can see, is gone. And if we could try and compare, it's hard to get them the same size, but they look pretty similar, right? Most of they've sort of had the same kind of effect, visually at least, that we can see. So let's play that back and have a listen, or you play yours back and have a listen. And as we can see, it seems like most of the noise has been removed. We can play the audio. Hello guys, and welcome to this Pixel Profits tutorial. Today we'll be looking at and it shouldn't sound too bad. Now there is actually also a faster way to apply these effects, and that's by hitting Control and R on the second stage of the noise reduction. And basically if you've gone to Effect and you've gone to Noise Reduction and you've selected your noise profile, once you come out of here and you press OK and this window disappears, if you're happy with your settings already, if you sort of use a sort of default, if you like, you can just hit Control and R at this stage and that'll reapply the the noise reduction, and without going back into the menu and going to noise reduction and then going back here and clicking OK, you can just literally hit Control and R and it will reapply the effect. Alright, well now it's just for you guys to go and have a listen to your different clips, see which one you think sounds best. Like I said, I personally prefer to use noise gate because I think it doesn't do any damage to the actual audio signal when you're talking. But it's up to you. You might not notice any difference. You might prefer noise reduction. You do what you need to do. I'm just giving you the explanations here of how they all work so you can decide for yourselves. Well, now we know how to apply both effects and while keeping our audio hopefully sounding great, and you understand the settings and how to change things, and ultimately you'll be able to select the best option for you. I hope you found this video useful, guys, and if you have, please let me know by leaving a like and a comment, and also subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell to see when I release a new video. In the next part of the series, we're going to be looking at applying effects to make our voice sound good. So if that sounds like something that's of interest to you, stick with me and I hope to see you there. Take care guys, and thanks for watching.